Now, descriptive statistics, we again discuss some more points on the content which has been covered under the descriptive statistics course of postgraduate diploma in applied statistics program offered by School of Sciences IGNOU. After the collection of the data, we require the data to be compiled, or it should be classified, since when we collect the information or the data has different characteristics in it through its diversity or the many persons involved of different having the different characteristics, nature and behavior. So, after the collection of the data, the next step in statistics is classification of data. The classification means grouping of related facts into different classes. Information in one class differs from those of other class with respect to the some characteristics. Broadly, the collected information can be classified under following categories. The first one is geographical classification, second chronological classification, third quantitative classification, and fourth one is qualitative classification. First of all, the geographical classification. The geographical classification can be done on the basis of the location, religion, etc. Geographical classification, when we have the data in different commodities, for example, the production of wheat. The production of wheat in some particular cycle can be classified for whole India into different 4 regions. The regions may be eastern region, northern region, southern region and western region, and the magnitude can be put regarding their particular region. You have to keep in mind that while classifying the data on the basis of geographical location or region, that the name of region can be kept into alphabetical order, or one more aspect can be used for classifying the geographical classification, that is the magnitude of the commodity. Second classification we are discussing over here, that is chronological classification. And chronological classification can be done on the basis of the period of time. You might have seen in different books or different newspapers or agencies, the data are given in terms of the year, and year wise classification has been done for some particular commodity or some particular matter. On the basis of the time period, if we classify the data, so we have to keep in mind that the classification or should be done, the years can be kept in the ascending order. If it is needed that the current information should be kept first or in preference, then the order can be opposite, that is from the nearest one current year to the previous year. The third classification comes under the qualitative classification. On the basis of some attribute, qualitative characteristics such as sex, color of hair, literacy, religion, we may classify the data, and this type of classification can be done from on the basis of the qualitative classification, and this classification is known as qualitative. For example, if population is there, some particular colony or some particular city is there, and we can classify the population into 2 main characteristics, that is on the basis of the sex, that is men and women. Then again we can classify these 2 categories into 2 more categories, subcategories, that is known as, that is on the basis of the characteristics literacy, that the men, literate man or illiterate man. The women, the number of total women can be classified into 2 categories, that is literate women, illiterate women. Again we can classify into this information into again on the basis of the next characteristics, that is employability, that is the literate man is employed or unemployed, illiterate person, man, employed or unemployed, like that. So this type of classification is manifold classification of qualitative classification. Now the fourth classification is quantitative classification. The quantitative classification is done on the basis of some characteristics that can be measured numerically, such as height, weight, income, age, sales, etc. The quantitative classification gives birth to a frequency distribution. For example, here we have classified the scale of the number of employees in a certain or a particular organization comes under the different scale of pay. So, this is the quantitative classification. Now, have a look on this number of values has been given on the screen. There are some number of values has been given in a large number, and this information is the age of the children or the youngsters, teenagers in a particular colony. This is the data has been collected, and this is the raw form of the data. Now, there is a need to compile this data, to arrange this data systematically. So then we can have a system that is frequency distribution. The frequency distribution in which the information is distributed in different classes on the basis of discrete variable is known as a discrete frequency distribution. Let us consider the ages of 30 students selected at random from among those studying in a certain class. So, there are the 30 values of ages of the students in a class. So, these 30 values has been arranged in a frequency distribution. So, the different age has been taken as a age of a student in first column you are seeing here. Then we count the age 20, this how many times comes in the data. For once it comes, we mark one vertical line, that is tally mark. So, one tally mark for one observation or one repetition of the value 20. So, here in the whole data, that is in the total value of 30, there are the 4 students having the age 20. So, we have marked here 4 tally marks. The fifth one, when it goes over 4 or more than 4, then one cross line or cross tally mark can be added to that 4 lines. So, that is the 5. So, in the data you are seeing in the table that age of 21, there are 7 students having the age 21, 8 students having the age 22. So, this kind of arrangement or distribution on the basis of the frequency is known as the frequency distribution, and there the frequency distributions are 2 types: discrete frequency distribution and continuous frequency distribution. If we have taken the variable understudy of a discrete form, then the distribution formed on the basis of a discrete variable, that is known as the discrete frequency distribution. Second one is continuous frequency distribution. As same as the discrete frequency distribution, if we having the data and we are arranging the data in terms of the frequency distribution for the variable or the information that is collected on the basis of the variable that is having the nature of continuous kind. So, the frequency distribution is known as the continuous frequency distribution. Further, this discrete frequency distribution and continuous frequency distribution can be extended for the relative frequency distribution. A relative frequency distribution corresponding to a class is the ratio of the frequency of that class to the total frequency. For example, there are, if 100 students are the total number of, in that example if you are viewing on the screen, so there are the total number of students in a class having 50, that is the total, and in class or the marks obtaining 0 to 10, there the total number of students are 6. So, the relative frequency will be for the number of students having the marks between 0 to 10 is 6 by 50 is 0.12. So, by definition, a relative frequency corresponds to a class is the ratio of frequency of that class to the total frequency. The corresponding frequency distribution is called relative frequency distribution. Similarly, if we multiply the relative frequency by 100, so then this frequency converted to the percentage frequency. Then the distribution is constructed so is known as a percentage frequency distribution. So in the example we have given over here, that is the class or the marks of 10th class, the number of students in the class are 50 and the marks has been obtained from 0 to 10 by the 6 students, 10 to 20 by 10 students, 20 to 30 by 14, 30 to 40 by 18 and 40 to 50 by 2. So then we have calculated here the relative frequency and percentage frequency, and this constitute relative cum percentage frequency distribution. The next one is cumulative frequency distribution. As we have constructed the discrete frequency distribution and continuous frequency distribution, when discrete frequency distribution is constructed, we the cumulative frequency distribution is constructed by cumulating the frequencies class wise. For example, if the frequency or the number of students in 0 to 10 class is 7 and 10 to 20 is 11, then cumulative frequency for 0 to 10 will be 7, but for 10 to 20 frequency of the second class 11 will be added to the frequency of the first class, then the frequency of the second class will be 18. Similarly, for 20 to 30 class the cumulative frequency will be 33, then 30 to 40 is 45 and 40 to 50 class the cumulative frequency will be 50. So there are the two kind of cumulative frequency distribution is there. First one is less than cumulative frequency distribution and second one is more than cumulative frequency distribution. The less than frequency distribution is started from 0 to 10, the frequency of the next classes are added to that one, then cumulative frequency of the last class will be the total frequency capital N, and more than a cumulative frequency distribution, that is more than ogive also called. So there were the first class having the total number of frequency, that is capital N, and here for this example it is 50, and then it subtracted the next first one and the class wise then. So in that the second you see here the more than cumulative frequency, the class 0 to 10 having the more than cumulative frequency is 50, then the frequency of second class is we subtract the 7 from the total and the more than cumulative frequency will be 43 for the second class, and similarly it reduces up to the last class frequency will be 5. So this is the cumulative frequency distribution. The application of the cumulative frequency distribution just comes when we go for the calculation of median and we construct the ogive charts in quality control. Now after constructing the frequency distribution, the tabulation of data, it is also in one aspect of representing the information or the observation collected from any method of collection of data can be represented in terms of the table. The table is a systematic arrangement of statistical data in columns and rows. A table can solve the purpose of the presentation and facilitate comparison. Table enables the reader to quickly locate the desired information and facilities the comparison bringing to the related items. There are the some parts of a table that can be described over here. The first part is table number. So every table should have a table number, so that in a particular chapter or a particular segment or particular amount of information it is given there and more than one tables are there, then for the reference we need to have the table numbers, so that in the further chapter of the book or further pages of information bulletin we can give the reference of that particular table through the table numbers, and the table numbers are located to the just above the table Now the table heading, the second part of the table heading should also be there, and it always be applicable that whether the table consists which type of information, what type of information are there in the table you are representing there. So the table heading reflects that information there. So it is a must needed, the table heading. So every one is just suggestion is there that the table heading should be there, table number should be there, and table heading should comes just upper side of the table. Now the next the part of this table is caption. It is the column heading. In columns, just you see that table has the column and the rows also. So in the column, the caption refers the column headings. Whatever the information in that column is given, this caption indicate that one. So then next part is stub, and stub is refers to the row heading. Row headings, where in rows what information has been provided in that table. There may be some sub heading in the rows. So there may be one main heading will be there, that is known as the stub. Now the body of the table, which contains the numerical information, that is the main part of the table, which consists the whole information whatever you are going to represent through table. Head notes, that is brief explanatory statement, may be given below the table heading. If table heading having the reference of the information given in the table, then this head note will be the substitute or supplementary of that information. For example, sometimes we may give that if the information consists in the table amount of commodity produced in a particular area, then in that head note we can give that the weight of the unit of that particular commodity in crore ton, in 1000 tons, like that. Footnote, last one, the part and the main part, that is to give the source of information. If any particular information that we have been collected from some other sources or available sources, that is in terms of the secondary data, so we can provide the information of that source in terms of the footnote. So that is the whole content that constitutes the table. So that is the example here in your screen. We have given here the number, that is table number 1. There is a heading, that number of person living in a colony. So that is provide the information that the persons living in a colony consist these numbers 12, 20, 42, 25. So these numbers reflects here this information that these are the number of persons living in a colony having the different age group. The age is the stub that is given in the rows. In column, the persons living in a colony having the subheading males and females. So this is a composite type of table that also be known as the two-way table. Now we comes on the representation of data. When we have collected the information of the data from any particular method of collection of data, for whether it is a primary data or a secondary data. Now the primary data, which comes bulk amount of values or the observations in a large number of, and then we have to use the representation to represent the data in a diagrammatic or a graphical term of presentation. The graphical and diagrammatic representation, generally it is the understanding of the person. It is said that whether you are the running matter or the theoretical matter in the running matter in a book can have the impact of in the mind, it remains for less time whether if we have the information through the pictorial way or the diagrammatic or the graphical presentation, that remains for more time in our remembrance. So it is easy to understand, attractive look, greater memorizing effect, and comparison of data. So by looking on the diagrammatic or graphical representation, it is very easy to compare information or the data. Now there is a type of diagrams we are discussing over here. There are 5 type of diagrams: one dimensional, two dimensional diagrams, pie diagram, pictogram and cartogram. First of all, we come to the one dimensional diagrams, and one dimensional diagrams comes under the bar diagrams. So there are the 6 kind of bar diagrams are here: simple bar diagram, subdivided bar diagram, multiple bar diagram, percentage bar diagram, deviation bar diagram and broken bar diagram. Simple bar diagram. Simple bar diagram can be used when someone has to represent the data based on the one variable. So for example, the figures of productions, profits, sales for various years may be represented through simple bar diagram. Viewers, we can summarize the whatever we have discussed till this time. So we started the classification of the data. We have primary kind of data which can be classified into 4 kind: geographical classification, chronological classification, quantitative classification and qualitative classification. After the classification of the data, we can have the large number of values in a particular data or the information. So that can also be classified into frequency distribution that can be arranged in a very perfect manner and a locative manner that can be easy to understand. So we have discussed the frequency distribution, discrete frequency distribution and continuous frequency distribution. These are the 2 type of frequency distribution we have discussed. Then we have discussed the relative frequency distribution, and then we discussed the cumulative frequency distribution, which has the application, while we will discuss the calculation of median. Then after the tabulation, that is the simple and very popular way of representation of the data. The parts of the table we have discussed and different kind of tables. Thank you.